on the time, but yet we are going to wait just a little bit for other interested people to join, maybe like 2 or 3 minutes, and then we can start with the soft landing of the webinar. Thank you all for coming on time.
In the meanwhile, feel free to use the chat, introduce yourselves. Where are you from? Where are you joining us from?
I see some familiar names, some of our partners and colleagues. That's always good to see, but also some new names. Okay, I think we can start with a chit chat, let's say. At the beginning, I would like to ask just for few rules in order to have the good experience on the webinar. It's okay to turn off your camera, it's completely fine. Also your mics, please keep them muted. Of course, at the Q&A section of the webinar, please turn on your mic and ask the question or give your impression, whatever you like. During the webinar, during the speaking panel part, please do write your impressions or questions in the chat box and we will answer it, just in order to keep the discussion rolling on. This webinar is created or designed as a panel discussion, and it will be a talk between me, Milica Marjanovic, and Aisling O'Connell. And for the start, I have to say this webinar is going to be recorded. If someone is not okay with that, it is important to mention also. You will get, if you have to leave the meeting, leave the webinar sooner than its end, then you will get the recording of the webinar, so you will not miss anything. Thank you for coming. I'm Nikolina Jankovic, and I'm a business manager from the Asset International consulting company, quite new company in Serbia. And what I wanted to say at the beginning is that first, I was afraid maybe that this topic of game-based learning is not so interesting for our regional market, Serbia plus surrounding countries. And yet, when I saw your applications and the registrations for this webinar, which is quite a huge number, I hope that, yeah, people are still coming to the webinar. And it was quite a surprise for me, definitely. It is saying to me that our region is eager for innovation, and definitely for innovation in the HR. And honestly, I can say that I wasn't that person 2 years ago. Yeah, today I'm smiling. Today I see results, but 2 years ago, if you ask me, no, I was rather a person preferring live in-person trainings, and I believe really that it was the best way to learn a soft skill or hard skill or whatever. Yeah, I'm definitely was or were a person for live in-person trainings. Then, let's say when my colleague Milica 2 years ago approached our management with the idea of one game-based learning platform called Gamelearn, which was quite awarded at that time. Well, that was quite new, interesting, but no, I thought it's not for our market. We are not ready for it. Maybe in 10 years, maybe 6-7 years, we will talk about it. But no, at that moment of time, I knew only for one company from our market that was quite pioneering in this area, but only for internal purposes. And that was Philip Morris International, who created their own game-based learning platform called Coaching Out. That was actually one game for coaching skills. It sounded interesting to me, but yet no, we are not ready. But at the moment, our management decided, well, Assert is in its beginning. Last year, we started our operation in April. It was 1 year, exactly 1 year ago. So we thought, we are a brand new consulting company. We have a brand new products like game-based learning softwares. Heck yeah, why wouldn't we do it? We are completely new. We don't have anything to lose. And we want to start a revolution on our market. And that is why we invited such a great speakers today. Aisling O'Connell, who will introduce herself, one of the leading names in the gamification in learning industry, and my colleague Milica, who is a gamification consultant in our own company. And honestly, I can say one of the leading gamification consultants in Serbia, definitely. So girls, please introduce yourselves to our audience today.
All right, shall I go first? Hi, everyone. Really happy to be here. And I just want to say thanks for having me, Nicolina and Milica. It's going to be great. I've been working in education for 12 years and dedicated to e-learning for the past 7 years. And I run what we call the Academy in Gamelearn. And what Academy exists for is to teach the world about game-based learning and to evangelize, and because we really believe in it, we're super passionate about it. We think it is the way that people should learn, and we want learning to be fun again. So that's what we do.
Thank you, Aisling. Milica, would you like to introduce yourself?
I will be short. You said most of it. So my name is Milica, and I'm the gamification mind behind Assert International. By vocation, I'm a psychologist, and I must say that unlike Nicolina, I believed from the beginning in game-based learning, and I really hope that by the end of this webinar, you will feel the same enthusiasm that Aisling and I certainly shared from the beginning, and that Nicolina is sharing right now. So it's possible to change your mind, and I hope that this webinar will open your eyes to new perspectives in game-based learning and gamification.
Thank you, girls. Let's start with an intriguing question. I heard it a lot these days. How common it is to play at work? Aisling, could you answer me?
Well, unfortunately, not so common. It's one of these things that we know instinctively when we're teaching children that play is such an integral part of their education, and especially in technology and science, we see it. But for some reason, we've decided collectively that the play needs to disappear from education as you get older. And it's just really unfortunate. We believe that play needs to continue, and that the best way to learn is to play with something. And I think you could ask any engineer and they would agree. The best way to learn how something works is to play with it, take it apart. So we really believe in that, in experiential learning, and in the power of games to really absorb skills. And for that, this year we did a survey. We did a huge report. We asked a huge collective of HR managers and training developers in the industry and their end learners. And our report is called The Contradictions of Corporate Training, because what we found is there's an ocean of difference between these two collectives. Let me share my screen with you for 1 second so I can show you the results of this report.
Yes, please.
So as you can see, we've got a very lopsided graph going on here, because the formats that are being offered in e-learning compared to the formats that learners want. And what we can see here is they want to play. Our most in-demand techniques or formats for learning materials are gamification techniques, virtual reality, video games, and augmented reality. And of course, we can see there's some super interesting stuff going on in virtual reality, and especially augmented reality at the moment when it comes to learning, but they're still not quite accessible to most for their scalability, for the investments involved. Particularly for virtual reality, you need to have the headsets, you need to have a headset for every learner. It's just not feasible just yet. I mean, who knows in the future? But right now, with our tool, we've managed to make game-based learning and gamification super accessible and without even having to be able to write code.
It's fantastic. Thank you for sharing this data. I think it's quite new for our market. And I can say that our colleagues from the people development, especially Milica, she shares your vision even then back 2 years ago. And our colleagues said people have to learn through play. It's the best way how adults learn. And of course, when you compare learning by doing with learning through play, that's exactly it. Yet, I have to say, when we approach local clients, especially in Serbia, I have to say that some of them someone would say, we are not ready for that. So we have older generations in a company. We prefer live in-person trainings. And we say, okay, maybe this game-based learning is not for you right now. Let's talk after a few months. Maybe you will see that others are actually doing it and using it and having great results. But yeah, some companies do have that maybe distance.
Mm-hmm.
Some other companies are ready for innovation. They say we are a right company and we want to implement new ways. We have tried different learning methodologies. We don't see lasting effects. Employees get bored with some old learning techniques and also demotivated for some other learning paths and the trainings. So, what do you actually think when you say gamification or game-based training? Maybe Melissa, would you like to answer that distinguish these two?
Yeah, well, when we spoke at the beginning, we started with the term game-based learning, and it is important to make the difference between gamification and game-based learning. So when we talk about gamification, we talk about using different elements of play, such as leaderboards, badges, point system, and adding them to an existing learning program. So either you have your LMS where you have some video material, some PDFs or whatever, and then you are giving points and making leaderboards regarding users passing through that material. And that is also a big, let's say, benefit, and gamification has its use. Such as game-based learning, gamification also increases engagement and motivation, but it does it in a bit different way. It also allows us the possibility of using it in different aspects, not just in learning, but also in engaging different groups of people, users, marketers, or your buyers. But gamification per se, let's say it's a smaller, or game-based learning is a broader term, let's call it like that, because you can have gamification without game-based learning, but you cannot have game-based learning without some aspects of gamification. And the difference is that game-based learning considers a full game being the method of learning, being the product, or the product that is helping people learn. So we are not using game elements to increase engagement in existing regular learning programs. We are making a game that is the learning program in itself. And this is quite different because you're then using storytelling, you're using simulations and role plays, and you're actually giving a different perspective on learning, not just engagement, but different cognitive approach to learning. So I think that it's important to know the difference. We use both of them. Gamelearn also uses both of them, and I think Ashling will tell a bit more about the theoretical background of everything, but it's important to know that gamification and game-based learning are different terms, and game-based learning is something of a pedagogical model and methodology, not just something that increases engagement. And And here I would like Aisling to tell us something about this story that I started, so the theoretical background. So why did Gamelearn decided to teach people through video games? Why not use some traditional learning methodology?
Sure. I'll say, like, just to reiterate what you said, gamification is a powerful tool for engagement and has its place and can really be really effective to pique learners' interest and get their competitive natures out, to get them consuming your content. But what game-based learning is, it goes so much further. And the real key, as you touched on, and we'll talk a bit more about, is integrating in completely into the game what you're learning. The learning material is the game is the learning material, it is the practice. And I wanted to just go back to what Nicola was saying, because you brought up an interesting point about how sometimes we think of play and we think it doesn't have a place in serious education, and you forget sometimes that not all games are silly. Some games are quite serious. When you think about a game of chess, you play chess, but it's quite a serious game, and you can learn quite a lot from playing chess. You learn a lot about strategy and about forward thinking. So we're used to these ideas. The idea of serious games, because they're serious, they don't have to be. They can be silly if you want them to be, but they don't have to be. Right. And I thought I'd like to share my screen again and share a presentation with you guys to talk a little bit about what you said. Just one sec. So as people who deal with learning development in our companies, at the end of the day, the name of the game is the return on investment. I'm sure you'll agree. And trying to climb that ladder up to the top of the Kirkpatrick structure, because exactly. So we can try all of these strategies, but really at the end of the day, it's a strategic aim within the company that we're trying to address. And what we're trying to do is change behavior. We're trying to get our learners in whatever industry it might be, whatever the learners are not doing that we want them to do, and why, and that's what we need to address. And with game-based learning, and with a lot of different types of gamification, we can get that reaction quite easily, that we can have the learners enjoy the learning. That's the minimum. Okay, that we get to. Then did the learning really occur? We can totally guarantee this, because you're practicing the real actions that they're doing. And that brings us straight to the impact, because it genuinely changes their behavior in the real world. And that will bring you to the level 4, the holy grail of learning development. Get there, get to the top, and make sure you have an impact on the business at the end of the day. So how do we do it? What's our formula? Our formula for it to impact performance in the company is to attract, engage, and teach skills. And this is why we have gone for game-based learning, because it's the only thing that you can really engage with all 3 of these pillars of our strategy for learning. So first of all, attract. It's something we don't do. Most of the technology we use in e-learning is 30 years old. The SCORM standard is 20 years old. I find e-learning moves quite slowly technologically compared to the rest of tech that moves so quickly. E-learning is quite slow to advance. And I think a lot of us know that, because a lot of us are a little bit jaded by finding gimmicks on the market that are interesting for a minute, but the novelty wears off quite quickly, and people lose interest, and nothing seems to kind of really engage and really work. But that's what we're addressing here. Also, our attract, this tasa, this perdona, Spanish, this rate of course completion is abysmal in e-learning in general. 25% of people finish the courses. 25% completion rate is awful. And that's because we're not engaging with the learners. The novelty will wear off. They'll start the course, but they won't finish it. I'm sure we're all used to seeing that. And also the learning isn't occurring either because they're not engaging with it, or because their own impression of what they've done isn't or they don't see the applicability to their work, which is key as well. But in Gamelearn, we have figured out how to address all of these matters. 93% of our students recommend our courses. They are super attractive. They're attractive to all generations for different reasons, but they are super attractive. It's not your everyday pedestrian e-learning. So right off the bat, you've got the attraction. Our engagement is superior. We've got 4 times more hours on average spent in our games than on traditional e-learning. And we have a completion rate of 85 to 90% in our games. When you start, you finish because you're totally engaged. The story gets you, you want to finish, you want to get to the end. And we have a 99% of our students who say that their skills have genuinely improved. We have a 99% rating of what they were learning in the course is applicable to their real job in the real world. So, and how do we do it? Okay, so how do we do it? The attraction. We use storytelling. Okay, storytelling fosters engagement. It has a super, we'll talk about maybe a little bit more later. Storytelling and narrative has a really strong effect on learner retention. We create fully immersive environments, 3D environments that are these virtual experiences for learners to navigate through. And we create simulations of real world situations that causes experiential learning. So people can really see, okay, this is attractive because it's really going to help me in my job because I'm going to be practicing something practical. It's not just a game for a game. We have the gamification to engage our learners. It's one part of our game-based learning strategy, but it's an important part as well. The idea of finishing, getting to the next level, beating your colleagues is super effective, engaging, and that's one of the keys to our completion rates, along with the storytelling. We have the interactivity and the play. The games that we have, how you actually interact with the content within the game. It's not just read and click that we're all so used to. We can create millions of different, the limit is your creativity on the different ways that you can interact with your content within the game. The mini games also can be used simply to kind of, to make real the world, to flesh out the story of your narrative and create a real immersive experience for your learners. And we can also use the games to check learning, to check that you've been paying attention, to make sure that we're using checkpoints along the way and ensuring that that learning is really occurring and that it's being absorbed and it's being assimilated. And of course, the teaching happens through real scenarios that we simulate, creating experiential learning, which we know is super powerful in affecting retention. And we also have immediate feedback. Immediate feedback is super important. I'm sure Milica will agree with me. This is where we can create situations where they are allowed to practice the skill in the safe environment of the game, where they can fail in the game so that they won't fail in the real world when they're applying these skills outside. And finally, we use repetition. A game has several levels where you're repeating the skill, you're growing and you're getting better each time. Repetition, instant feedback, like we said, in simulations, these things all used together really create behavioral change in the real world.
Yeah, and I'll have to add something here because as somebody who likes to verify everything in the scientific research, peer-reviewed scientific research, I think that's the thing with psychologists here is that you have to check. And that's the first thing I did when I started to look through game-based learning. So I went to my favorite website, Google Scholar, and I looked through different studies and I saw that actually great universities in the world are dealing with studying game-based learning methodologies, the process of game-based learning, and the thing that those studies show. So Aisling talked a lot about the studies that Gamelearn does regarding their own games, but just to top it up with scientific research of different games, but the methodology of game-based learning. So the conceptual knowledge increases by 11% more with game-based learning than with other learning methodologies. And the thing that Aisling just mentioned about the safe environment to practice your skills that you have just learned, that it's not normal that you know how to do it right away. The safe environment of the game brings to the participants self-confidence, and the studies have shown that 20% that the self-confidence is higher by 20%. Also, we said it's easier to learn when you're practicing, when you're repeating. And the thing is that not just the increase of learning that is shown in the studies, but also the retention of learning, because we're trying it and we, let's say, automate the behavior that we try out in the game. So the retention of that behavior, the retention of that knowledge can be a lot longer than than when we just read or click through something or watch a video. So that's just something added to what Aisling had to say. And Aisling, are there some challenges or some, let's say, situations in which you would say, okay, maybe game-based learning is not the best solution. Maybe this group will not benefit the best from this, and maybe something can be done better.
I mean, I really don't think so in terms of the content that you want to teach. I think really the limit of how to practice something, and I mean it's about thinking about the action you want to change and how to simulate that. And I don't think there's a limit there. The limit is your creativity, and especially with the tool that we provided, you can create those situations. And I think also there's a misconception that certain generations won't be attracted to this, and it's a mistake to write off any particular generation that won't, and say they won't be interested in game-based learning or playing a video game. Because as we've seen in our 16 nearly years of experience in this sector, it appeals to all generations in completely different ways. When you're talking about your baby boomers and you're all the way down to your Gen Z, they are attracted to it and they see different things in it. So your older learners will see it as something a bit more innovative. They're not used to maybe they're not used to playing games, and they'll be attracted to it because it's something different. You know, at the end of the day, a little bit of novelty is is really, really good for engagement, and they'll see that in it. And we seem to think then that maybe younger generations like myself as a millennial or Gen Zs who've grown up playing super impressive computer games with a level of graphics which is perhaps higher than our own, that they won't see the value in it, that they'll think it's passé. But really what we're seeing is for them, it becomes transparent because for younger generations, the ubiquitousness of this kind of technology means that they see past it. They see past it and they see what you're trying to build with it, and they see the simulation and the learning, and they go, oh, okay, this is going to work. You know, they see it as just another medium. It's as simple for them as a video. So.
Yeah. And when we are talking about the challenges, can you tell us more about the challenges that you help your clients overcome? So what are the biggest success stories, and what are the situations when you would then suggest using game-based learning?
Absolutely. I have a few examples of some of our clients who had specific challenges. I've already mentioned a little bit. One of our clients, BBVA, who's a bank here in Spain, multinational, they had the challenge of creating training because they're such a huge organization with people from all generations in their being trained on quite specific skills. So they had that multi-generational attraction. They needed something that would work for all generations. And I've kind of already mentioned how we attack that, because with our games, you can really make it attractive for different reasons. It is attractive to different generations, and their engagement went absolutely through the roof. Another example I can talk about is LG, the technology firm. They had a company-wide initiative to promote innovation. And it's a hard thing because it's not so concrete sometimes. You know, how do you promote innovation and innovation mindset within a company? And someone very smart in HR decided, if we need people to innovate and we want to promote an innovative mindset, we need to have one ourselves, and we need to innovate in our learning. And that's when they came knocking on our door and they were like, we need something innovative. We need a different innovative way to deliver this learning to our people. And it's super. I'm going to share my screen again so I can share some of the results of those with you. The other example I had was MSD. They're a pharmaceutical firm. They had a serious lack of engagement with their e-learning initially, and a lack of applicability. Their numbers on this content is applicable to my job were super low. They came to us, and I'll share with you now the results of that so that you can see. There we go. So as you can see, we had BBVA shot up to a 99% employee recommendation rate, that 99% of their employees said that they would recommend this. MSD had an 8% in productivity, right up to the top of the Kirkpatrick, and a 99% of applicability, which was exactly their problem. They got it up to they got from 10% up to 99% with Gamelearn games. And LG, they increased their engagement by 19%.
Wow, these are great. These are great numbers.
Fantastic results. I'd like to add here, Ashling, I see a bank, a pharmaceutical company, a technology company, and I don't know why, but it seems, well, it resembles our situation in Serbia, in the region, since most of our clients who were quite innovative to start with game-based learning are from IT, banking, and pharmaceutical companies.
Yes.
So what do you say about, let's say, innovative industries on the global level? Is it what it seems like in the region?
Absolutely. I mean, I think those three sectors tend to be at the forefront of e-learning innovation because of their needs in regards to their training. It's very specific skills. It's constant upskilling, it's constant reskilling, it's constant compliance. So they tend to be the people pushing, because they've got a lot of training to deliver. So they need to diversify, they need to innovate. But I've just put this slide up here so you can see some of the range of sectors that are using our games successfully. So it's absolutely not limited to those. And we talk a lot about soft skills because that's where our main and oldest games are focused. But you can absolutely apply game-based learning to hard skills development. One of our current examples, we are working with BMW, and they're creating games to train. I'm not a mechanic, but I'll try to explain as best I can. They're using some of the games to explain how to follow processes correctly in the reparation of an engine or of a part. And for following processes, the main thing for learning acquisition is repetition. So we can use the games to foment that repetition. And also we can use the mini games and the interactivities within the games. They have pictures of engines, for example, where you have to select the part that's broken or things like this. It requires you to understand it a bit better to explain it better, I guess. But basically they've enveloped this idea also in a game that's based on you as the player, you're one of the mechanics in the Formula One pit, and you have to help your team get the car ready on time to win the race. So they've managed to find a nice little connection to a little narrative that really engages the learners and piques that competitive nature in us.
Yeah, and that's also something that I forgot to mention when talking about the research and the studies. The thing that the studies show is that the importance of having the knowledge and the game, the storyline of the game connected. So adults learn when they see benefits or when they see the connection in the real life from what they are learning. So that's why it's important to have that connection between, as you just said, so mechanics are working as repair specialists in Formula One teams. So it's important to give it a hint of reality. So if we do it everything in a world of fantasy and don't give anything that's tangible and real to the player, then the learning might not happen as good as we talked about. But that's also the beauty of Gamelearn and the ability that it gives us. It's really to play with it, to answer to any possible need and to any possible situation.
That's right. And I thought I saw engine, car engine on one slide. I was afraid of it. It was interesting quite a bit since our market is very attractive for automotive companies, production plants that are investing in Serbia. So this is a good hint here. And I really want to ask Milica to present some of the local results, some of our clients, and what are the results? Are we having some success, or we are just a wishy-washy talk?
Okay, yeah. Before talking about the results per se, let me just give you a little bit of the background and of the context of how we do these services or how we offer these services. So besides just providing access to Gamelearn portfolio as their partners, we're offering additional consultancy service as part of these training programs. So we start from needs assessment to training evaluation and follow-up support as well. And one of the steps in this consultancy support that we offer is also providing assessment pre-test and post-test survey. So pre-playing and 3 weeks post-play. So we give the players a little bit of time to try out the new skill in the real world as well. And then we get together on a follow-up meeting and discuss the results. And by doing our programs this way, we actually obtained information about the efficiency and the benefits of using Gamelearn. So we don't have as much case studies as Gamelearn has because we just started. But I'm sorry, I'm just going to have to ask somebody to mute their mic. Thank you. We don't have as much material as Gamelearn because we are doing this for a year, but in this past year, we had a number of projects and we had the opportunity to try out different Gamelearn games in the region and to obtain results. And the thing that I can say is in the beginning, Pacific, so the leadership game was the most popular game. But as the time passed by and as we presented Gamelearn in all its beauty and glory, we also had different projects with merchants. So the negotiation and conflict resolution, Triskelion is the time management, 2100 the customer service, Aqua and Sahara, so feedback and delegation skills. And the thing that I'm the most proud of is that in the average scores for all of these programs, we have the increase of skills development in the post-test. So this was the self-assessment, but we assessed both the cognitive and the behavioral part of the skill, and we saw improvements on all the aspects, so all the competences that we were assessing for every game, we saw a significant improvement. When we take it down to the level of individuals, everybody had a different experience, as what Aisling said, with different groups of players. But even those players that initially in the results showed better results on the pre-test, so you would imagine they are better before playing the game than after playing the game. The important part was the follow-up meeting where they actually explained to us, and this is something that was that happened in almost every situation where we had that inverted results, is that people actually rated themselves worse on the post-test because the game give them insight on how underdeveloped some of their skills were, and they wanted to show that they gained some awareness of about how they need to behave. And the thing is that we're then creating an action step on that follow-up meeting to bring upon the necessary need after playing the game that doesn't show up in the results. So even if we have those kinds of results, even with those kinds of results, we still on an average have improvement in skills. So we have to say that this shows as very, very useful technique, and the local market results are pretty compatible to the ones that Ashling just showed us. And I'm confident that with the number of projects that we do, that we will continue to show this improvements in skills.
Thank you, Melissa. Could you share with us if, since we work together, I know that also, but maybe our audience don't know, are there some cases when we don't suggest using Gamelearn or game-based learning processes? What is the situation?
Well, yeah, we can say, well, I can say like philosophically from my point of view that I wouldn't suggest game-based learning in any situation. As Ashley said, it's just the matter of approach and what the people will take out from this. The thing with Serbian market is that we are still pretty traditional when we think of learning. As you said in the beginning, you as part of the millennial generation still had some traditional views of how development should look like. So if we encounter a very traditional system, it's our belief that it's easier to provide some other service than to push for gamification just because we believe in it. As we said, people need to see it as a developmental tool, but we also have some steps on how we do that. So first of all, we talk with HR when we present the game to the HR. We are also open to having demo games, demo presentations of the game with all the players in order to show them the benefits of the game. And here I can say that actually I had I noticed throughout these projects that we have here in the local market three main challenges when we talk about these programs, or specifically players connection with the game. So we either have people who think that games are not serious enough to be able to learn from them, uh, and we see people who don't play games, and then they're afraid of the experience of playing the game. So that's something new to them, and they're not so accepting of that. And then we have the group of people who really likes playing the game, and they only in the beginning see the focus of gaming, and what Ashling said, also the expectance of a much more let's say graphics wise interesting game. But as what Ashling said, we have the communication process that hinders or helps us remove these barriers. So a big part comes with the communication and management of expectations. If you have people who are afraid of playing games, not playing games well enough, the kickoff meeting that we do, where we get participants familiar with the game, the gameplay process, and everything else, helps those kind of people to lower their anxiety, the fright of playing something that's not familiar to them. And then when they start playing, they actually see the how interesting the game is, and they actually end up being the ones that are most satisfied with the program. And then the ones that think of it as just a game, um, understand throughout this communication process the benefits of gameplay. So we also show the previous results, we show how it looks like, and we also talk about the game mechanics that provide learning. So role plays, points that are granted to you because you did something good, because you did something that the educational material told you to do. So we present both the game part and the education part in detail in the kickoff session, and I think that's the biggest part of how we can help people actually accept this new way of learning. And here I just want to make a small remark, and I'll give floor to other speakers. We had a project where we didn't use that kickoff meeting. through some of the negotiations with client, we decided that that would be the more effective option for them. And then on the follow-up meeting that we still did, because we did the pre-test and the post-test, that we wanted to close the learning process, all the participants had the remark that it was hard in the beginning to get used to everything. So either they're from the part that don't play the game, or from the part that plays the game usually and expects something more. They noted the part that something was missing, and then we actually concluded that this kickoff meeting, the familiarization with the game, is a big part of removing the barriers of using this game-based learning in the best manner.
Absolutely.
I don't know, if, Aisling, if you would like to add something regarding this. How do you manage the barriers?
Yeah. I mean, we've been dealing with it for the last 16 years. My boss Ibrahim, our CEO, will tell you about the walls he met when he started this company 16 years ago, that people thought he was crazy and people thought games are for playing, they're not for learning. But we're still here, and to be honest, I see there's a question there. Tamara in the chat is asking, how do we promote our games? And honestly, an awful lot of it comes from word of mouth and people who have played our games and become absolute champions. And I have to say that I'm kind of one of them, because I'm here as this evangelist in game-based learning, because years ago I was given one of Gamelearn's games to play and I was super skeptical. I was working as an e-learning developer at the time, and I thought, oh, this is one of those gimmicks that will distract from the learning, that won't be effective. And when I saw that, like, very soon after playing, it was Pacific, the leadership game, very soon after playing, I was applying what I had learned in the game to giving feedback to my own team. And I was remembering the experience of giving feedback to the character in the game like it was a real experience that I had. And I was like, light bulb moment. And I became an evangelist for game-based learning immediately. I think you have to get them to try it. That's probably the barrier. But I think once you get people to try it and you get them to get in there, and people will see, they'll start seeing it, because the proof is in the pudding. It's not something that's all facade and no meat, you know, it's really there. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to touch on there about convincing people, like, are there any negative aspects of it, asks Roman, and resistance from potential clients? If there are, what is the action to combat it? Get them to try it. The other thing I wanted to mention was part of it as well is in the strategy of how we design the games, because we like, for example, we've got games of slightly varying methodologies, and our game designers were very excited about making games that had open navigation. By that, I mean that you explore like a millennial or a Gen Z would expect to play a game, like you play most PlayStation games at the moment, that you're navigating yourself, you get to explore. We found the feedback on that type of game was not good, because people want to be guided, because the first focus here is not a video game. The first focus is the learning, and they want to be guided in their learning, and a fixed route through the game is much more effective and has much better ratings. So it's also slightly in the strategy of how you build the games, so that you don't let your learners get lost along the way, so that they don't feel at any point during the game that they don't know what to do next. That's a very important part of the convincing as well.
Yeah, we will answer on the rest of the questions in the Q&A session. Definitely be here until the end, so we will answer everything. Maybe I would like to refer to one point of the barriers, and having in mind our business in Southeast Europe, in our region, especially in Balkans. In some clients, we weren't able to use Gamelearn as a game-based learning, since most of the content, most of the trainings were in English language. But with new announcement that Assert International is creating and designing first game on the local language in Serbian, and after the Serbian, then it will come Bulgarian, Slovenian, of course Croatian with Serbian, and other languages first on the in the order will be leadership training in Serbian language. And we are very proud of it that now with the Gamelearn editor, we have the opportunity to design and to gamify, let's say, almost any process beside HR, but we will at the beginning focus on HR. I know this Milica will tell me, but we can gamify even the sales process. So maybe you want to say something about that.
Well, as Nikolina said, we are currently in process of creating the first leadership game in Serbian language. So stay tuned. We will present that in the next month or two. And the thing that I wanted to say here is that not only learning process can be gamified. So Aisling will tell us probably more about that, but I want to tell you something about my experience with the report that Aisling showed to you at the beginning. So the one that shows how different the current offer of learning and training is and what the learners are expecting. When Gamelearn published that study, they actually didn't do it as a webinar or as just sending you the study. They actually created a game to present those results. So this shows us that game-based methodology, I will stop using the term game-based learning because it's game-based methodology of transferring information and transferring changing behavior. We can create such reports and also present, let's say, some products on an interesting way. So yeah, we are focusing now on the HR because that's our niche of working, but it is possible. You just, as Aisling said, how creative you are, it's the limit of how much gamification you can use and how much game-based learning you can employ. And here, I would like to ask Aisling maybe to tell us more about the creative process of creating the game through maybe explaining to us the intergalactic battle game through which you actually presented those results.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like, we wouldn't be any good if we didn't practice what we preach. So when we have something to present and something to teach, in the end, it's all communication is teaching. You want them to learn something, you want them to go away with some knowledge at the end of your presentation. So we decided to do our annual report and present it in the form of a game. And as our annual report is based on these contradictions, what the e-learning that's offered versus what learners are asking for, we came up with the idea of this intergalactic battle between the tediocytes of traditional e-learning design and the gallons of game-based learning. You can guess which ones are the good guys. So we came up with a whole story, and we published our event on LinkedIn, and we did it in 3 different languages as well. It's something I wanted to touch on when you talked about creating your first game in Serbian. Our creation tool also facilitates really easily translating games into multiple languages. So you don't have to start from scratch if you want to translate your game. There's a tool within the creation tool that means once it's developed in one language, you can make it in as many as you want.
That's fantastic. Thank you for new good news.
Now let me show you. It was here. So yeah, our Learning Wars 2021 was our event that we published in LinkedIn, and I'll share with you a little snippet of the game that we played to communicate our results.
So Earthling Global Data Network, guys.
Let me pause for a second because I should give you the backstory of the story of the game, because it's important to understand. So in the game, in the intergalactic battle, you are Agent 00 Alpha, who has come to visit Earth. And you're trying to find out why Earth hasn't really gone to the next level of learning design. Why are we stuck? Why are we not advancing in this? And in your adventure through Earth, you're going to find out different information about how training happens on this planet.
We need to check. I see
people are saying internet, Wi-Fi internet. Let's go to the Wi-Fi logo. I think everybody's agreeing that we should check that.
Agent 00 Alpha, man, it says this network is for clients only. Okay.
So what should we do, guys?
Seems like we need a password. So guys, it seems like we have to find a password somewhere.
So buy something is saying Trang, then Sven
I'm
is saying get a drink. What
clicking.
else? Look at the receipt. Okay, so they're saying that there's a receipt on the table.
I'm
Yeah, I see some receipt. Maybe we can check that out. Awesome. So
Okay.
what is the password, you guys? Because it says Tauco Cafe, and then the password is kind of, let's see. I think the name of the network is Salasana. So the password, they're saying maybe Tauco 2021. Do we want to try that?
I'll try. Is it, but how do I write it? With a capital
So it's T with a capital T, Rach, and then AUKO
Okay.
2021.
Okay, guys, I hope I wrote this correctly, because if not, it's
We're
gonna
losing points. So Rachel, you better write it correctly.
It's good. It's good. It's good.
Okay.
Agent 00 Alpha. It's Troy. I mean, surprising. Their knowledge is very well organized. I like this internet thing. I like this internet thing too. All right. It seems that adult Earthlings organize their production units into things called companies. Okay. Interesting. Inside these companies, they have training and education. I'll do some research. So now Agent 00 Alpha goes online and he starts looking on the internet, this thing that he likes, he said, and he finds a blog by Corporate Trainer News. And all of these results that you guys are going to see now come from our Contradictions of Corporate Training 2021 report, but we wanted to tell a story and share these findings with you in an interesting and gamified way. So just know that all the stats you're going to see from here on out are from that, okay? So back to the story. Agent 00 Alpha finds a blog and he discovers that the most used formats in online corporate training are videos, text documents, and PowerPoint presentations. And it's worth mentioning that these technologies are over 30 years old. So then he keeps scrolling and he finds some more information. And what did the employees think about the training they received? So this is what they thought about the training courses that they received last year in 2020. And overall, they thought mostly they were really boring. There wasn't a lot of interaction with the courses. And finally, the content that they learned wasn't applicable to their jobs. And this is actually the most interesting part of the study. So Agent 00 Alpha continues scrolling in the Corporate Trainer News blog, and he discovers this part, which also comes from our Contradictions of Corporate Training study report. And he discovers that here we can see that the formats that HR and L&D used to present their online courses in 2020 are basically the exact opposite that employees wanted. So that's why we can see here kind of an inverse graph going on. So they were using video, text, presentations like we talked about before, but employees wanted augmented reality, video games, virtual reality, and gamification. But we'll get more into that.
Yeah, that was the experience. I remember this really well. And actually, for me, it was the first time to have some results presented in this way, and it was really, really interesting. And as I said, you can do it like this. So doing a presentation of the game where people are writing in the chat and somebody who is sharing the screen is actually clicking within the game. But imagine that you are sending your research papers to your clients in this manner. So anything is possible. That's what we wanted to say with this part.
Absolutely.
Thank you for showing the intergalactic battle. It was very interesting to see it since I saw it for the first time. Yeah, I would like maybe, and our audience also, to hear how the creative process goes. What are the main steps in your
I can talk through it, because that's always the first question. I mean, first of all, I want to mention that we created the game for the intergalactic battle in 1 week.
Fantastic story. Already fantastic story.
So we're really excited about our new tool, the editor, which is part of our platform, which allows you to create your own games. So what it does is it takes all of the time focus that you would have to spend on the development and the graphics and the characters and programming to be able to take that time and focus only on the learning design, on designing the experience and the simulations that you want your learners to do. So that's what the editor facilitates, and we're super excited about it. We've gone from creating one game about every 2 years to launching 4 to 5 games every year that we're going to be adding to our catalog. But it's always one of the questions, because we show how fantastic our games are, and we talk a lot about how effective they are and stuff. And the question is always, but can I do that? How do I build a game? And as learning designers, we're not necessarily used to teaching through storytelling. It tends to be the part that's a bit more daunting. So let me explain the process to you very quickly. We have it to a T. We've been doing it multiple times over the years. So I divide it into 4 phases: your preparation, your design, production, and of course, testing, very important. So the preparation part of the process is by far the biggest. It's more than half of your time is spent preparing your content, because that's when you're really deciding what you're teaching and how to teach it. Okay, so our first step would be to choose your content, remembering to base it on real world actions that you want your learners to do that they're not doing. So that's where you get your basis of your simulations, okay? Then you collect all your content and you reduce it, okay? We want to reduce it right down to the core points. There's always a more concise way to tell the story or to convey the information. And remember that all of that extra subtlety that you're going to learn will come through the simulation and through the experience of learning. You don't have to put in a document every single detail about what you're teaching. That it's better to learn that by inferral. So you reduce, and then you organize. You can design your game for as many levels as you want, and usually, I mean, you can have as many lessons in each level as you want, but usually we put one lesson in each level. It's a nice way to organize it. And you decide how to chunk your content and in what organization you're going to teach it. Are you going to start with an overall view and go into more detail? Are you going to do it in a step-by-step process, building on knowledge from before? That's all up to you. And it obviously hugely depends on what the subject matter is that you're teaching and what is the skill that you want the person to come away with. So here comes the fun bit. This is where we start. Because up to now, it's all fairly familiar to us, preparing the content. But now we need to define, how do we want the people who are learning to practice the skill that we're doing? So this is where we imagine what kind of simulation we want to create within the game. And this simulation needs to be really practical, needs to be exactly the actions that you want them to carry out in the real world. And like what you said, Melissa, before, about making it really practical. I'll add a little matiz there. It's tempting to when you're talking about some kind of office skill to set your game in an office. But we've found that if you just take it out and put it in a different context, your engagement and your interest, because we spend all day in the office, we don't want to do it in the office again. So don't be afraid to take your what you're practicing and put it in a different context, but you're still practicing
still the same skill.
Exactly.
We need to practice the same behavior.
Exactly. So you're not taking away from it, you're not distracting, but you're giving it a little bit more flavor. And often people learn by analogy much better than learning by specifics. So from that, based on what you want to practice, you want to integrate that completely into your story. And this is where people feel a little bit daunted, because a lot of us aren't used to teaching through storytelling or teaching with a narrative. And don't worry, you don't have to be the next Hollywood screenplay writer. You can copy the Hollywood screenplay writers. Take the stories from your favorite books, from your favorite movies, from the soap opera that you like to watch. Again, simple human stories always work the best. And a twist at the end is always a good idea. Like we had in the intergalactic battle, at the end of the game, you find you go to meet the Gamelearn founders. Mai and Ibra are our founders, and you find out that they are the Galans. So there's always a little twist at the end of the story, which helps people to get to the end, solve the mystery and all of that. So don't get too worried about making an amazing, innovative story. Base your story on what you want to practice, and focus it on the learning, and you will be successful. And then you just need to prepare your lessons. And by that, your lessons is the theoretical content that you want to include in the game before each practice piece. because the structure of a game is a loop. You're going to repeat the same action, and that's why like we can use this to repetition to enforce processes, to enforce lots of different types of learning. So you create your lessons, whether they be a document, a PDF, a video, however you're going to communicate concisely and quickly your learning content to then be practiced. Okay, and then there's the design part, which is where you decide the mechanics of the game and the structure of the game, which gets a little bit more complicated. I won't go into too much detail, but once you see how easy the editor tool is to use, you'll see that it's super, super easy to do. The editor, I have to say, is, and I've been working with all of the e-learning authoring tools of the market, and it is up there in the top 3 easiest ones to use. But your resulting content, your finished product is so much more superior than just some slides with some buttons and interaction. It's a fully immersive situation. So basically, in the editor, you're given the tools to define the navigation, define the mechanics of the name of the game, choose which kind of mini games you're going to use to practice specific skills, where you're going to put challenges and give points, and award skills to your learners. That's your design part. And then in your production, you write your script, you write all of the dialogues, the interactions between your characters, you get all of that ready. You build the skeleton of the game, because it's very, very important to test your skeleton. And then you fill your content into your skeleton and test your game very well before you finish up. and there you have it. And we've done this multiple times. We're producing games, 4 games every quarter. We're producing at the moment. And like I said, we created the intergalactic battle game in just 1 week.
Yeah, and that's the great thing, because it allows us to really answer all of the needs of our clients. So whether you have a hard skill or a soft skill that you want to develop, whether you want to create some communication process or initiative in your company, we can help you make it more interesting, engage more of your employees, and make it more fun for them to learn and to discover new information and to change their behavior. That's great. Thank you, Aisling, for explaining the process this well. I think that this shows that all of the games that you create are made in this way, and then you now explain to people the process of making this so successful. So the point is to really connect the material, the educational material, to the experiences in the game, and to make it fun and to make it safe to practice and receive feedback.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Melissa. It was so great having you talk about the game-based learning today. Maybe we should refer to the questions. We have several questions. Some of them are really, really good. On the first one, Ashley already did answer on how they promote products and services. And maybe I would add only that for Serbia and Southeast Europe, Assert and Manpower Group are presenting, we are authorized representatives of the Gamelearn, so we do approach clients directly, also with marketing initiatives. What is very important, we emphasize that several times, the demo game is very important. You have to try it before you or the client or the organization choose to invest in this. Again,
and here is the question: can they see the demo? I see one of the questions. So you can get back to us after this webinar, and we will be glad to share demos with you, to show you everything, to talk to you about the future gamification projects.
Yes, definitely. And maybe we didn't cover it today, and I see some new names that are not familiar with the Gamelearn catalog, soft skills that are covered through the Gamelearn catalog at this moment. So this is not excluded. We are still doing design of new games. Time management and personal productivity, team management for the leadership game Pacific, also 2001. 2100 is also one great game, customer service rotation, and almost 20 games at this moment, and that number is rising.
And it's just gonna rise.
Yeah, I can tell you the games we have in the pipeline are based on decision making, on agile methodologies, and on
Effective communication, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, non-verbal communication. That's the one. Yeah,
yeah, and nonverbal communication. Yeah, I see some of the questions here. So, are there any negative aspects, any resistance? I think we talk about the resistance of gameplay and how to deal with it. So, use the communication method that you have, present the game, have the people the experience with it, and then try to answer all of the questions they might have. So that's the recipe that we found for motivating people, and also track. So that's something that we also offer as a consultancy service. So we are actually taking care of your class, of your students. So we are watching them, we're watching their progress, and we're also providing additional support to them. So if we are seeing somebody who is not playing that often, then we're offering individual motivational support to those people. So we're really making sure that people don't have questions regarding this, and that they can enjoy this experience and really learn something from it.
Yeah, there is one question. Is there any industry that cannot profit from playing and might need some other approaches? Based on the research, probably asking the Gamelearn's research, is there any industry that is reluctant to do game-based learning?
No, there might be users who are reluctant because every person has their own experience and their own preferences and prejudices, you know. But a whole industry that I could rule out, absolutely not. I mean, there's like we said, this is applicable very easily to soft skills, and we're seeing some innovations in hard skills, and there's not a lot that you can't do with this. So absolutely, I wouldn't rule out any whole industry for sure.
From our experience in the Serbian market, I could say only that some companies are not ready to start with the game-based learning, since they have some core activities to deal with it. For, let's say, local company that does not have HR department at all. Well, they need more support than just the game-based learning, if you know what I mean. So start from the beginning. Let's start.
Yeah, it's a matter of priorities.
There are priorities, definitely. How long do the games last? And are they conducted at once or in parts? Elisa, do you want to answer?
I can answer this. Well, it depends on the game. So when these new games that Aisling is talking about, they're a bit shorter. So it's about from 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours tops. But the games we mentioned in the beginning, so Pacific, Merchants, Triskelion, the older games are more complex skill-wise. So you have a separate game for delegation and for giving feedback, but you also have a game for leadership skill that is naturally longer to play. So the longest are those 3 games, and it's around 10 hours each. And the other ones are shorter. The thing is regarding the play, so we can offer you both seats or subscriptions where you have access to all the games in a matter of in 1 year period. We can offer you specific training. So this is something that we actually do because clients want specific training for specific needs, and we can also offer that. So we help you define the need and how to answer to that need using Gamelearn games. So it depends on your need. It depends on what you want to achieve, but a lot of that can be done with these games.
Yeah, I'll just add there, just to clarify, it might be obvious, but just because of the way the question is worded, obviously the longer games that are 10 hours and possibly more, depending on how long you take, you don't have to play the whole thing all at once. Obviously, you're like it saves your place. You come back whenever you want. You can play it over the course of a few weeks. But our new strategy is to go towards smaller games and to go towards the idea of a series rather than a movie when we come to certain skills.
Yeah, and maybe it's best to create a learning path with smaller games and like chunks. So you have accomplishment. You already won the game and you want more. So that is how we keep the the employee motivated and engaged to work on the development,
Yes.
self-development. Sergina asked, is it possible to make different modules according to previous skills and or age in same company for the same topic skill? Do you take background of learners as a guideline for some trainings?
Okay, so this is more of this a local question, so I will answer to this one. I wouldn't advise people in the same company playing different games from the same skill, because then you lose the part of the competitiveness, because they cannot then play the same game and compete within the same game and rank within the same game. Also, as we said, these games are actually at the end applicable to different generations, because it's just a matter of how you communicate. So it's a matter of the return of investment. Why make two games when you can make one that is efficient to everybody? So the thing is that we advise with our clients on the storyline. We have certain storylines that go good and well with the certain skills that we want to train. If you want to train leadership, you need to put the person in some situations where they will have to delegate tasks, give feedback, and then around that you can make any story that you want, and by that story engage different players. So to answer the question, we can make different games for same skills, but we wouldn't recommend it, because you can have one game and then all the players playing the one game and competing amongst each other, making it more interesting on a company level.
I would like to add here that what we notice in the companies is that, yeah, definitely the employees have different levels of skills, and that's why we use assessment process to see what is the current level of development of developed competencies, and then we match who should attend which Gamelearn training. So some of the games do require some basic knowledge, but it's not must have. For example, for communication, of course, there is no difference. Is it already a skilled communicator, or someone who has to build the communication skills from some undeveloped level? On the other hand, for let's say coaching, for the echo, it would be good if person had some experience with advising, coaching people, but again, it's not a must-have in order to attend the game and to be good at it, since it's a learning process. So background of learners as a guideline for some trainings, it could be used. It's not a definite answer that we have to take it as a guideline.
But as I said, we check the storyline with you, and you can check it with your employees, and we do this as a partnership process. So we're here to answer to the needs, and then we talk to you about it a lot, so we can decide on which storyline can be the best. But as I said, educational wise, so the situations that we employ in the game, I would leave them the same for the same company, just in order to be sure that all the people are learning same skills in a standardized manner. Okay. I see here the remark, the sales process cannot be gamified, but can the technical knowledge necessary for sales process be gamified? Yes, and I will now add on this. So yes, we can gamify or make the game to teach you sales skills, but you can also use gamification, so not game-based learning. Here we are taking back on the difference between gamification and game-based learning. So you can use gamification to gamify sales process. So to gamify, so every 5 meetings with a client, you receive a star or something like that. So that's gamification. Game-based learning, so it's not to gamify the whole sales process, but yes, to learn the technical skills about the sales process.
But remember the chatbot as a customer support, that's the gamification. And also if that chatbot is taking your sales inquiries, then it's a start of gamification of the sales process. So some parts could be gamified, but then we are thinking maybe too upfront. We don't want robots and game characters to take our jobs.
Yeah.
Do we have other possibility to follow your co-workers' improvement by reaching higher levels in the game, and by that create some level of soft competition?
Yeah, okay, I think I understand now the question. So do you think that a player can see the results of the co-workers and being able to compete? Yeah, that's the thing that happens actually in the game. So you are being able to see the ranking of your co-workers. That's why I mentioned that it's better to have one game than two games for the same company. And I don't know, Ashling, do you maybe want to add the thing that the difference in rankings, or do you want me to talk about that?
Absolutely. Like we there's various ways of giving points during the games. It's a super flexible system of setting up point systems. But in our standard games, it really works. You see your colleague finish the level before you, and they've got a few more 100 points than you, and it's super effective. And it's one of the questions that we get a lot is if the games are multiplayer. And for me, in that sense, they are, because you're not sitting beside each other playing, but you are competing through the same story. So in that sense, they are multiplayer, and the competition really works to peak, especially if you get to beat your boss.
Yeah.
We had a situation in our sales team who were the first who tried the demo of the Gamelearn, and they were doing a merchant for training of negotiation and conflict management skills, and they beaten their head of sales. One of the salespeople won over the head of sales. That was an interesting story, though. But again,
they still mention it, I think.
Yeah.
And it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's always interesting to compete. But yes, it's also important to mention that it can be turned off. If you don't want to create that competition, then it can be turned off.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we always advise it though, because it brings upon more motivation. But if you have a closed culture where people are not so open to this, then you can, of course, shut it off. And I see here the last question, and actually Ashling said something about it. So multiplayer and single player. So yeah, every player has his own game, but all of them are competing on the same rank list.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay.
If anyone who wants to give their impression, feel free to turn on your mics, share your view, ask a question, or propose some idea. Feel free to speak now, or contact us. You will get on your emails our, of course, contact and recording and demo. So feel free to ask for the demo. When you get the recording, we will be happy to show it to you and to give you to experience it and to play with it, which we think is the most important. So now you can go back to your companies and ask for more play at work.
Yeah, go and play and innovate and redefine the learning process. And I believe that we will have all together the great success with this. So feel free to contact us, as Nicolina said, and I'm sure Ashling will always be our support from Spain for any project here.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun, really interesting chat.
Thank you. Thank you very much for devoting your time to speak at this event. And I see here that we have some positive comments on this webinar. People said that they learned a lot. So thank you, Ashling, very much for sharing your knowledge with us and for being here today.
Thank you, guys. And talk to you soon.
That's all from us. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.